in history without winning a title.
Now the Bulls would like to get 2-for-1 possession here. Try to get a quick score, get to the free throw line to give them 2 opportunities to 1.
Tension mounts as the Bulls seize the opportunity for a 2-for-1 play, with Michael Jordan effortlessly breezing past Brian Russell for a layup. With Kerr stationed in the strong side corner, Kukoc poised in the weak side corner, and Rodman looming at the rim, the Bulls' offensive setup presents a formidable challenge for any defensive scheme. Meanwhile, Scottie Pippen is dealing with major back pain, limiting him to mostly acting as a decoy. With him not being a shooting threat and mostly outside of the frame here since he's so far beyond the arc, it would have behooved the Jazz to ignore him unless he made a cut into the paint. This play represented just one of several missed opportunities from the Jazz. Just moments later, Jeff Hornacek's routine baseline screen aims to secure post position for Karl Malone, but Jordan defies expectations, choosing to leave Hornacek, a great shooter, and instead doubling down on Karl Malone, a bold move that pays dividends as he snatches a crucial steal. Then, at the electrifying moment when Bob Costas says 17 seconds, with the game hanging in the balance, Michael Jordan rises to the occasion, delivering a hair-raising go-ahead pull-up shot that etches itself into the annals of basketball history, leaving Jazz fans shocked and speechless. It's this moment that decades later everyone remembers, like the release of the first Harry Potter book. But focusing solely on Jordan's famous shot is shorting yourself of a truly rich story in basketball history.
They play the Bulls. You can't miss there, Jordan.
There were many twists and turns throughout this game that led to the dramatic climax and the end of an era. The 1998 NBA Finals Game 6 was the most watched NBA game of all time. At 35.8 million views, it had a whopping 3 million plus more views than the next most watched NBA game ever. In this video, we will uncover the personal battles, the missed opportunities, and the basketball strategy that defined who won the game. Stay tuned to see the story that needs to be told. Before the opening tip, Ahmad Rashad and Jim Gray review several key injuries, most notably Scottie Pippen, who, as I mentioned earlier, is experiencing major back pain. This injury certainly would have kept him out of a regular season game, and most likely a game earlier in the playoffs, but it wouldn't keep him out of a closeout game in the NBA Finals. Ron Harper was also suffering from flu-like symptoms, and Howard Eisley was suffering from vertigo. Jim Gray also reports that he spoke to Karl Malone before the game, and that Malone told him he wanted to focus on attacking the basket and try to get Dennis Rodman and Luke Longley into foul trouble. He didn't want to take many outside shots. After the opening tip, the Bulls get into their triangle offense formation, and we get the first glimpse into the Bulls' major strategic focus in this game. Notice the urgency with which Stockton doubles Scottie Pippen when he gets the ball in the low post. This is because the entire Jazz team knows that Jeff Hornacek has a major size disadvantage against Scottie Pippen. Well, guess what? So does John Stockton against Ron Harper, and we'll see that soon enough. But you can't put Brian Russell on Scottie because he needs to guard Michael Jordan. The most effective strategy the Chicago Bulls can take is to post up the smaller guards of the Utah Jazz in John Stockton and Jeff Hornacek, and indeed, that is what they will do. So, once Stockton doubles Scottie here, Scottie kicks it out to Harper, who fakes a shot and immediately passes back to Scottie for an easy dunk. But upon watching a replay later, even early in this game, Scottie Pippen is already wincing from pulling his back going up for the dunk. Not to get too ahead of ourselves here, but in the second half of the game, we actually see a mirror image of this very play, this time with Ron Harper posting up John Stockton and scoring while the Bulls play keep away from Jeff Hornacek. The reason I skip ahead here is to show you further evidence of the Bulls' strategy working effectively against the Jazz guards. But the Jazz were equally focused on working the ball into the low post. Despite John Stockton and Karl Malone's prowess in the pick and roll, they rarely used the pick and roll in this game. It's like if a cowboy set out for a rowdy saloon brawl without their trusty six-shooter, yet still managed to keep the peace on the dusty streets with quick reflexes, a firm stare, and a reputation that precedes them. Regardless of the lack of pick and roll, it's obvious why the Jazz would want to work the ball into the low post. They had Karl Malone, a generational low post talent. But there was a surprise benefit for the Jazz force-feeding Malone in the post, and that was illegal defense. In the 1990s, illegal defense is when a defender would be caught not guarding a player, but be caught in between two players. So when the Bulls defenders would get ready to double Malone in the post, but were too hesitant to leave their men, that was illegal defense, and the Bulls committed it a lot in this game. Because Malone was such a dominant player in the post, the Bulls would frequently front him in order to deny the post entry. But if the Jazz guards could throw the entry pass over the man fronting Malone, it was usually easy to make a layup or a dunk. This resulted in the Bulls also trying to send help from behind Malone. This is where the Bulls started to get into trouble with illegal defense, and early in the game, Jerry Sloan was already complaining about it. It got to the point where the Bulls were clearly discombobulated between deciding to be ready to help on Malone and not committing illegal defense. On this play, Howard Eisley sets a down screen for Malone, and due to the threat of the mid-range jumper, Ron Harper switches on to Malone to deny the shot. Malone recognizes the mismatch and takes Harper into the post. Meanwhile, Rodman is switched on to Eisley, and when Eisley runs around the screens, Rodman tries to shove Kukoc to signal to him to switch on to Eisley, but then Kukoc decides to get into a legal position, and then he has an oh shit moment where he realizes that he's illegal. And on this play, when Malone is cross-matched on Kukoc, he sprints down the court to try to get post position, but Kukoc knocks him to the ground. Malone gets back up and gets into post position and is fronted by Kukoc. You can see that Michael Jordan is getting ready to help for when the entry pass is thrown over the top of Kukoc, but since he's at the free throw line and his man is far beyond the three-point line, Michael Jordan is illegal here. This time it's Jordan that realizes that he's in a precarious position and attempts to make a timely exit, only to find out it's too late. During the play, he signaled to Rodman, perhaps hoping to prompt a defensive switch onto Malone, but his plea fell on deaf ears. Michael Jordan's frustration with Rodman boils over after the whistle blows. So the Bulls get a technical foul for the illegal defense, but Jerry Sloan also gets a technical foul for complaining about Kukoc knocking Malone to the ground. Finally, on this play, the Bulls wait until Malone catches the ball in the post to send the double, in order to avoid the illegal defense calls. Kukoc doubles off of Karl, which is more effective with his length. The Jazz swing the ball and the Bulls rotate. Then Karl hits a turnaround fadeaway over Kukoc. Since Kukoc is struggling to guard Karl, the Bulls decide to sub in the seldom used Bill Wennington. Not to beat a dead horse here, but here we go again with Karl Malone in the low post and Michael Jordan getting another illegal defense call. Clearly this is a problem for the Bulls. One play that involves a post up but is actually intended to open up perimeter shots is called split action. Split action was popularized and made deadly by the Steve Kerr Warriors featuring Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson, but it was actually used by both the Utah Jazz and the Chicago Bulls of the 1990s. Split action is when the ball is entered into the post and then two perimeter players screen for each other. The perimeter players can also slip the screens, cutting into the paint for easy layups. The ability for this action to create easy shots at the rim and wide open shots on the perimeter makes it very difficult to defend. An example of the Bulls running split action is this play where Ron Harper posts up Jeff Hornacek and Steve Kerr screens for Michael Jordan. Brian Russell goes under the screen and MJ hits a three. An example of the Jazz running split action is this play where Stockton is at the wing and enters the ball to Malone in the post. Then Stockton screens for Hornacek, and Hornacek hits a perimeter shot from the corner. Outside of Karl Malone causing problems with the Bulls committing illegal defense, the entire Jazz offense got going off of Malone in the post. We just saw how split action can open up perimeter shots, but the Jazz had a pretty straightforward system of punishing double teams on Malone. On this play, Malone gets the ball in the post, and the Jazz run split action with Stockton and Karl, but they both cut into the paint. Pippen doubles Malone as they are cutting, so Kukoc covers Karl, who is diving, which frees up Chris Morris, who gets a kick-out pass from Malone. Morris attacks Buechler on the closeout, and now Anderson is free since Buechler had to rotate off of him. As Morris gets penetration past Buechler, Kukoc helps, so Morris passes to a cutting Anderson. Kerr fouls Anderson, and he hits a jumper for an and one. This play is one example of a pattern the Jazz would run. Get the ball to Malone in the post, knowing someone will double team him. The guard who enters the ball into the post will cut through the paint to the weak side typically, providing a cross-court passing option. Then there will be a man who dives or cuts into the paint, which will draw a defender to prevent an easy layup. There will also be a man on the perimeter ready to shoot or attack a closeout. So you have three main weapons, and since Malone is commanding the double team, one of them will typically be open. So it comes down to execution. Another example of this is on this play, where Malone gets the ball in the post and fakes a handoff to Stockton, who is cutting baseline. Pippen doubles off of Karl, who dives, and Kukoc wants to help on Karl, but Malone kicks it out to Russell. So Kukoc tries to recover to Russell, but he drives the closeout and draws a shooting foul. The last area of offense that the Jazz ran a lot of in this game is their UCLA series. A UCLA cut is when the ball is entered to the wing and then a guard cuts off of a back screen towards the baseline, with the first option being a layup. But the man at the wing has another option to hit the man setting the back screen at the elbow after he sets the screen. If the screener's man tries to help on the cut, then the screener can typically have enough airspace for a shot. But Jerry Sloan's offense ran a lot of variations of this action, which is why I call it a series. They were always able to counter subtle differences in defensive coverages. Early in this game, the Jazz run a UCLA cut for Hornacek, and Michael Jordan gets clipped by the screen. Stockton assists Hornacek for a layup. This is as pure as it gets when it comes to a UCLA cut. Textbook execution. In another example, we see a UCLA cut from Howard Eisley, but this flows into him setting a back screen for Hornacek to cut to the basket. Malone has the ball at the elbow and gets a nice assist to a cutting Hornacek. If we take another look, we can see a miscommunication by the Bulls, where Michael Jordan wanted Harper to switch, but Harper was a split second late on the switch. Later we see Stockton UCLA cut into a back screen for Malone, and then he gets the ball in the pop. Then, with Malone in deep post position after the back screen, Stockton makes a high-low pass to Malone, and he gets a layup. Here we see Hornacek UCLA cut, but he doesn't get the pass. Rodman is expecting the ball to go to Malone on the pop, and overplays him at the elbow, but Malone slips backdoor and receives a pass and draws a shooting foul on Pippen. So you can see why this series was a great fit for a team with a great mid-range shooting big man and quick guards who could make crisp passes and set back screens on big men. But the Jazz had a problem at the center position. They essentially had what's best described as a revolving door at center. They tried to trade for Ronnie Eisley, but the trade never went through, leaving them with holes at center no matter which way they turned. Greg Ostertag was a great option defending a young Shaquille O'Neal, but he was a lot of the reason the Jazz were beaten down historically in a game earlier in this series. Scottie Pippen simply ignored him to put extra pressure on Stockton, and Ostertag could not punish the Bulls. The other options for the Jazz at center were Greg Foster, who made numerous dumb mistakes earlier in this game, and Antoine Carr, who proved to be a problem for the Bulls and Tony Kukoc, but he was getting old and didn't have much left in the tank. A small ball option at center was Adam Keefe, who you couldn't expect much from on the offensive end, but he also made key mistakes on defense as well, like this play where Tony Kukoc easily drives past Keefe for a layup, or this play where MJ gets a step-up screen from Kukoc and hits a pull-up jumper over Keefe. You can see Jerry Sloan is frustrated that Keefe didn't show on that screen, giving MJ breathing room. While the Jazz had problems at the center position, they did get great contributions at backup point guard in this game from Howard Eisley. Eisley and Malone ran a couple of early pick and rolls in this game, and both times the Bulls iced the screen, which means getting in between the ball handler and the screener to deny the screen, but this allows dribble penetration. This Eisley-Malone pick and roll is iced, so Eisley rejects the screen and kicks it to Malone on the pop. Malone makes a move and hits a jumper. And here's another similar play. The Jazz love to have Eisley handle the ball at the top in a 1-4 flat alignment with 4 players lined up against the baseline. Then Eisley could either isolate with plenty of space or receive a pick to run a pick and roll. In this play, he gets a screen from Adam Keefe, but before the screen is set, Eisley drives on Steve Kerr. He draws help from Longley and makes a dump-off pass to Karl for an easy dunk. Here's a similar play where the Jazz run the same 1-4 flat alignment with Eisley up top, and this time Eisley uses the screen from Keefe. They have to rerun the pick and roll a couple of times as the Bulls ice the screen, so they reposition and flip the screen. Then Eisley rejects the screen, but then they run the pick and roll, and Eisley hits Keefe on the roll for a layup at the last second. Great catch from Adam Keefe, who was only catching strays from me earlier in this video. Here's one more similar play setup, where Eisley has tons of space to work with, but this time they are running screening actions on the baseline to distract anyone from helping or double teaming Eisley. Eisley isolates on Steve Kerr and hits a floater. But Eisley was also the unfortunate victim of an incorrect shot clock violation call, as he takes this bailout shot at the end of the clock and it is clearly in the air before the buzzer, but the three-pointer doesn't count. Later in the game, Ron Harper is the beneficiary of the opposite type of call, where he got the shot off late, but the basket counted. So that's 5 points against the Jazz in missed calls. As much as that sucks, the Jazz made plenty of stupid mistakes on their own, so they can't really blame the refs too much. While the Jazz had a rigid but sophisticated system that catered to their roster, the Bulls had Michael Jordan and the triangle offense. The triangle offense was much unlike Jerry Sloan's flex offense that the Jazz ran. It was a read and react offense that was based on improvisation and taking advantage of what the defense gave up. On this play, Tony Kukoc looks like he is about to run a curl cut route, but when he sees that Jeff Foster jumps the route, he cuts backdoor for an easy layup. This is just taking advantage of what the defense gave him. And coming out of a timeout, the Bulls executed this play where Jordan makes a shuffle cut for post position while Rodman gets the ball in the post and fakes it past to Jordan. Buechler dives while Rodman kicks it out to Kerr. Then MJ comes off of 2 off-ball screens, collapsing the defense, and Buechler pops free for the jumper. And this play just shows the chess mastery of the Bulls on offense. Scottie Pippen posts Adam Keefe. Russell helps, and the Bulls kick and swing to Kukoc. But as Russell recovers out of the double team, he takes a bad route to Kukoc. I say this is a bad route because he initially tries to rotate out to Rodman, who's as far from the basket as a 90s flip phone is from today's smartphones, and he's no threat from downtown. So Stockton has to help off of Harper to cover Kukoc, who pump fakes the closeout, takes one dribble in, and passes to Harper under the basket wide open for an uncontested layup. Also, Malone provides nothing defensively on this possession, and he has no instincts. Here's a triangle offense classic. Harper passes to Kukoc at the top of the key. Michael Jordan is at the elbow in the pinch post position within the triangle offense. Most of the time, MJ will isolate from this spot, so the Jazz try to deny him the ball, but MJ takes advantage of this and spins backdoor into an alley-oop. The Bulls ran this counter all the time, and it was truly beautiful basketball. On this play, Tony Kukoc and Luke Longley run a pick and roll, and Shannon Anderson helps off of MJ to plug the driving lane. Rodman sets a flare screen for MJ, who hits a wide open three. It's simple but effective. Aside from these beautiful plays from the triangle offense and simple counters to the Jazz defense, there were a few more reasons the Jazz struggled to defend the Bulls. First, the Jazz committed defensive malpractice on Scottie Pippen, considering his back pain making it unlikely that he was any sort of a shooting threat. Here's example 1, where Harper posts up Stockton. Hornacek doubles off of Pippen, so Harper kicks it out to Pippen. Pippen re-enters to Harper, who hits the jump hook over Stockton. Hornacek should have ignored him on the perimeter here. Here's another example where Pippen enters the ball to MJ in the post versus Russell. Hornacek stunts off of Pippen, so MJ kicks it out to Pippen, and Hornacek overcompensates, recovering back to Pippen. Pippen once again re-enters to MJ, who hits a turnaround fadeaway. In example 3, MJ and Rodman run pick and roll, and the Jazz are shrinking the floor with Stockton gapping off of Harper. Hornacek is completely lost on defense, ball watching the pick and roll, as he is navigating a flare screen by Kukoc, and expecting Pippen to be open for a corner 3. But Pippen's actually cutting to the basket for an easy layup, but he misses. Rodman still gets the offensive rebound and putback layup. In our fourth and final example, MJ isolates versus Russell at the free throw line extended. Stockton leaves Harper in the weak side corner and sneaks baseline to double. This forces MJ to kick it out to Pippen as Stockton recovers back to Harper. MJ gets it back and isos again against Russell, pump fakes, and drives and draws a foul. Once again, Hornacek is way too concerned about Pippen on the perimeter with a bad back, and he should have doubled MJ. But here we see Jordan draw a foul, and getting to the foul line was a huge key in this game for the Bulls. Here, MJ drives on Morris and gets the step, drawing help from Karl, who fouls MJ on the shot. On this play, Michael's in the pinch post position and fakes a handoff to a cutting Steve Kerr. Then he drives on Morris, once again getting the step and drawing a shooting foul on Karl. Here's a similar play with MJ once again in the pinch post position, but this time he executes the handoff to Kerr, then gets it back and drives on Anderson and once again draws a shooting foul on Karl. Here's another one where MJ and Rodman run pick and roll. MJ rejects the screen and drives baseline and draws a shooting foul on Karl. And finally, Jordan runs pick and roll with Rodman again, and once again, Jordan rejects the screen and drives baseline, forcing help from Stockton. Stockton commits a shooting foul. Now that's just a ridiculous amount of fouls drawn by MJ. This takes so much energy to do that, and it was on top of the amazing plays he made that didn't involve getting to the foul line. So let's go through some of those plays. On this one, MJ gets the ball in the low post and uses his deft footwork to get an easy layup. And here, the Bulls swing the ball as MJ shuffle cuts to get post position. He gets the ball and quickly gets into a tough move versus Russell and hits a pull-up. What an assertive and dominant move from Michael Jordan. You can tell that Russell did something to piss off MJ here, as Jordan gets the ball in the post versus Russell and easily hits a turnaround fadeaway. MJ is really hitting his rhythm at this point. This is the point of the game in which the teams got involved in a few tussles, where Rodman and Malone are tripping each other while moving up the court, and then Michael Jordan and Brian Russell get into some extracurricular activity bumping each other on this play. But here was the backbreaker for the Jazz, where Steve Kerr runs a pick and roll with Dennis Rodman, and Rodman gets the ball above the free throw line and surveys the floor. Nothing materializes, so he shoots a perimeter shot and makes it. To sum things up, the Jazz played well in spots during this game, but made too many mistakes by far. The Bulls didn't play particularly well, but Michael Jordan went nuclear on them and made 3 consecutive huge plays to ice the game and create the most storybook ending possible to his career with the Chicago Bulls. I hope you have enjoyed this video that mostly focuses on what happened before the shot, and I hope you appreciate what Jordan did before that all-time great series of plays. Thanks for watching.